Hey guys, we are Sean and Christy. This is Long Honeymoon, and today we're discussing a very important RV travel topic. Poop.
It happens.
Okay, we're talking about more than just poop. What prompted this week's video is a very interesting experience we just had in Las Vegas. We had a service called Daisy Fresh clean our RV holding tanks. Both the black water tank and the gray water tank. First of all, there are a lot of people who tell us that they don't perform certain critical body functions in their RV.
Basically, they say that they will only pee in their RV. They won't do anything else. So that means they're traveling to a bathhouse or wherever they're going. I hope they're going to a bathhouse to do their other business.
Bush, shrubbery, tree.
For me personally, one of the reasons why we bought our RV was so we would have our own private bathroom, so that I would not have to do any of those things in a public bathroom. I personally would always rather use my personal bathroom than a public bathroom. That's just me. So we are using our RV holding tanks to their fullest potential, let me just tell you.
Yeah, we use every part of our RV the way it was designed to be used,
yes.
Whether it's the toilet, the shower, or the oven. Frankly, there's no reason why you shouldn't use your RV toilet.
Yeah.
What's critically important is that you need to put the right stuff in it. And I'm not just talking about chemicals, I'm talking about human waste.
Yes.
And biodegradable paper. Daisy Fresh strongly recommended RV toilet paper.
RV or marine toilet paper. That's like best case scenario. They also recommended that you use liquid chemicals in your tank versus packets or granules or those sorts of things. Now, it's not that you can't use those things. They're just saying in a best case scenario, those would be what you would choose to use. We, however, don't use either of those things. For the 14 years almost that we've had our RV, we've always used septic safe toilet paper, not necessarily RV marine toilet paper. I personally am willing to take the risk because RV marine toilet paper is terrible. It's very thin and it's just terrible. So for my personal use, we use septic safe toilet paper. The key thing I think with using septic safe toilet paper is using enough water when you flush. And that's the case with anything that you put in your toilet. Don't be stingy with the water when you flush your toilet. Make sure you have a full bowl of water when you flush, because that's what helps break everything down. That's what helps those chemicals work. So it's very important.
Quite often, newcomers especially will get to a full hookup campsite, they'll hook up their sewer hose, and they'll open that valve and just leave it open, draining all the contents out of the black and or gray tanks. Mm-hmm. That's a big mistake. You should always have that valve closed, even if you're at a full hookup campsite. And you should always have at least around 10% of the capacity of your tank filled with water. Mm-hmm. Even after cleaning your tanks, even after you've just dumped your tanks, the best case scenario is to have some water in there. Water is your friend when it comes to your RV tanks.
Yes.
If you plan on using your RV, you don't want those tanks drying out, because when they dry, if there's any kind of solid waste deposit in there, it can dry and it can stick to the interior of your tank.
And then getting rid of it is way more difficult than if it had just stayed in a wet environment.
And this could really happen in either your black or your gray tank, because when you think about your gray tank, it's getting the contents of your shower and your sinks. That kitchen sink will probably include some food residue getting into your tank. Even if it's
really small, still that residue can cause problems and can cause smell issues as well.
If you're having a problem with odor inside your RV from your tanks, then something's wrong.
The only time that we ever smell our gray tanks is if we fill them and they start backing up into our shower.
Right, if they're getting really full.
You'll start to smell them then, of course, because it's right there in the bottom of your shower. But when those tanks are at normal capacity or less, then you shouldn't smell anything. Something to remember, when you put chemicals in your toilet, or in your shower, because you can use the same chemicals in your shower that you use in your toilet. If you're choosing to use the granules like we do or the packets like we do, a good practice is to let that packet fully dissolve before you flush it down. So if you're putting it in your toilet bowl, drop it in the toilet, fill the toilet with water, and let it dissolve completely before you open the bottom of the toilet to let it drop into the black tank. And then if you're putting it in your shower, you could put it in a bowl or something and let it completely dissolve and then pour it down through your shower.
So I'll show you the holding tank, deodorizer, and waste digester that we use. It's called BioPack. Now this is not a liquid.
The reason I don't like to use liquid personally is because they have either usually a bright blue color or a bright green color, and if they drip or spill on anything, it is stained forever. Getting that stuff out is next to impossible, so I don't like to take the chance of staining my clothes or towels or whatever in case it were to spill.
We really like using these little digesters, and I call them a digester because they actually have enzymes inside that help break down solid waste. And Daisy Fresh did make the point, these should go in your gray tank as well as your black. We put one in the black tank pretty much every time we flush the tank. Gray tank, not quite as often.
Please don't put flushable wipes down your toilet. I know that the package says flushable and you can flush them in your home toilet at your Sticks and Bricks house, but don't put them in an RV toilet. They cause massive problems. And also, ladies, don't flush your tampons down your RV toilet. Those can cause major problems as well. So sorry, I know that's not what you wanted to hear.
One tip from Daisy Fresh concerned treating the interior of the tank with some Dawn dish detergent and Calgon water softener. Now you would do this independently of the other sort of tank treatment chemicals. So when you don't have that stuff in there, you could put Dawn and Calgon in your tank, and apparently it will slosh around as you're traveling from point A to point B and almost be like a little washing machine, probably sudsing up the interior of your tank, softening any hardened deposits, and then when you get to your destination and dump your tanks, everything would be fresh and clean, in theory.
Do this when you can fill up your black tank with water so that it can mix with that Dawn dish detergent and with that Calgon water softening agent and mix together and have a lot of water to swish things around inside the tank. And then when you get to your destination, empty those tanks completely. If your RV chemicals mix with that Calgon water softener, they can form like a gel. So you need to make sure that your tank is completely empty and that you haven't put your normal RV chemicals in your black tank if you're gonna do that sort of little washing machine cleanse out that they recommend doing occasionally.
These are solid, they're not liquid, but if you use a lot of water when you're putting these into your tank, then you should be fine. They should fully dissolve. You see, in theory, if you just dropped it in there and you didn't use much water, then some of this housing could build up and actually form a solid deposit inside your tank. And Robert pointed out, it really only takes a deposit the size of a grain of rice to throw off your tank sensors. If you let solid deposits build up in the tanks, it can cause all sorts of long-term problems. For one thing, you're losing capacity of water. So you might have a black tank that's supposed to hold a certain amount of water, but if there's solid buildup in there, then obviously you can't put as much water, so you can't get as much life out of your tanks in between dumps. Secondly, your RV tank sensors can become non-functional, shall we say, if there are solid deposits on them. And we have had that problem ourselves with our black tank sensor. It's been very inconsistent over the years. Now look, for us, we had never had this done to our Airstream. Robert and Dana of Daisy Fresh show up. They've got kind of a pressure washer inside the little trailer that they tow. And inside your tank, they feed a pressurized line, and it basically pressure washes the interior of your tank using a couple of different streams. One is kind of a V stream that shoots out at 3,000 psi.
This is over 3,000 pounds, but it comes out in a spray.
Okay. Wow.
So that's what's going up in your tank.
Yeah. And the other has a different sort of sweeping effect. And so between the two of those, both the black and the gray were cleaned out. Once the service was done, we were really hoping that our sensors would work as intended, and sadly, they still don't.
No.
So we have some sort of issue with our black tank sensor. That can happen over time. You know, all it takes is the size of a grain of rice to throw that sensor off. And that sensor's 17 years old anyway.
I'm sure that newer RVs too probably have more accurate gauges and better technology than what we have on board here, because our Airstream is a 2003 model, so you know it's been almost 20 years since this technology was brought out. So I'm sure that the latest models have more reliable technology. So I'd be curious to hear from you guys on what your experience has been if you have a newer RV, as far as being able to trust your gauges to give you accurate information.
All those areas like where you pull open and shut close the valve, you should periodically lubricate those with WD-40, or we really recommend the Bow Shield, because Bow Shield just lasts longer than WD-40. It dries to a thin waxy finish that will hold up for many months. So Bow Shield T9 is a great product, and we'll put links to that beneath this video.
So when you empty your black tank and your gray tank, your black tank especially, the first thing that you should do after you empty your tank is come back in your RV, put water in your toilet, probably at least 2 to 3 toilet bowls full of water, and dissolve one of your packs or put your RV chemicals in that tank, so they can already be down there with water ready to dissolve whatever comes in next.
One other tip from Robert at Daisy Fresh is when you empty your tanks, it's best to have a lot of water inside them. He really recommended that you not empty them until they're pretty much full. And that's because you get the most downward force draining that swamp.
Yes.
Flushing all that stuff out of your tanks. You think about it, if you had a tank that's only 10% full and you empty it, you're not gonna have a lot of pressure from that water pushing the contents of the tank out through your sewer hose. So the more full your tank, the more thoroughly you're going to be able to empty the contents of the tank.
Yeah, and that goes back to the point about not leaving your tanks open when you're at a full hookup RV park, because you really need that pressure to help everything empty out. So make sure you leave your tanks closed when you're at a full hookup RV park, and then go out and empty them periodically when you fill it up. You know,
You just got to stand upwind
yeah,
when you do it.
this is true.
And always wear your gas mask. Not the sexiest of topics, but you know, everybody poops. Even Victoria's Secret models poop. They call that angel poop. You know that? Everybody does it if you're alive. Big shout out to Robert and Dana of Daisy Fresh. The cost of the service was $175. It takes about an hour, a little less than an hour. Not really cheap, but there's some jobs that I don't mind having professionals handle.
Yes.
I wouldn't want to try to do that myself.
Yeah, and this is different than just doing a freshwater flush of your tank, because they do actually insert their spray hose up into where your sewer drains out of. So it's a different location than where you would attach to just do a freshwater flush of your tank.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's definitely going inside the tank.
Yeah, it's actually a very interesting process to witness. I feel like we learned a few things from them, even though we've been doing this for almost 14 years. And I'm sure a lot of you out there have been doing it longer than that, and you still learn things.
If any of you RV veterans out there want to chime in and help out some newbies, help out some beginners, and just share your knowledge and experience of what works well for your RV, post a comment. We love reading your comments and learning from you guys as well.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please leave a comment down below. Share it with your friends and family. If you haven't yet, click that subscribe button down below. Click the bell icon to be notified of new videos. And until next time, what do we say?
Low, low, ho.